I wasn't trying to create a community, and the community happened. My average revenue per member is around 200 something dollars. That's my lifetime basic value per member. I'm pretty convinced that if I either had monthly fees, say $25 a month or $50 a month, or even yearly fees, if it was 99 a year or 180 a year or whatever, would have resulted into a lower average revenue per member. Once you have a churned member, usually that's it. You lost that connection. That person very likely is not going to come again. With lifetime membership, it changes the dynamic completely. You could not log in for a year or more, but you can never truly leave. You're always a member. I want to try to keep a high bar for the people who are sacrificing time with their family, time from their work, to attend these classes, and I don't take that lightly. I attend every single one of them myself, so yeah, if it starts to feel like it's not worth it for me to pay this much, to be in the room, to organize it, chances are it's not worth it for the guests. We're basically doing a podcast on steroids. This is, I think, very unconventional advice, because the gift that keeps on giving is the nicest compliment that I like to receive. About a month ago, there was this big conference by Circle. Not one person mentioned the option of doing lifetime memberships. And I found it really fascinating, right, that nobody even considered. What if you charge people once and they're lifetime members? I think it's very underrated. Over-delivering is part of the marketing strategy, essentially. I model many of my decisions based on what I like and I dislike. It's a bit of a mascot type thing, which always was funny. Once when we even made Taleb laugh at it, I had about 1,500 members within the first 2 weeks. It grew very quickly, but then just people stopped coming back. It was almost impossible to motivate people to come back. I think this is why communities are very hard to build, because it seems you have this chicken and egg problem. If there is any formula, I think it's just to do something else that brings people together.
Welcome to another season of Beginner Maths podcast, where operators of top community businesses share their tactics and strategies with you so that you can build your community business. Today, I am thrilled to have somebody who has been a long-time dream guest of mine, Daniel Vassallo. If you are a solopreneur, indie hacker, bootstrapper, or a bonopreneur, you've probably come across Daniel, one of his spicy tweets, or his community, Small Bets. He runs this community business that does more than 400K per year in revenue, which has forced me to just rethink all the best practices that I think I knew. He does things differently in this community, and it works. Things like charging a one-time fee for access to a high-value paid community, or like paying guests to do live classes in the community, and even like the existence of this community itself, which is more than 5,000 members, strong but still very engaged and high value. So Daniel, I am thrilled, honored, excited to just welcome you here and talk to you.
No, thank you, Nityash. Glad to be here. Happy to talk about this topic. So yeah, looking forward.
Amazing. I would like to start with the one thing that has been on my mind lately, actually, ever since I knew about this model, which is that you pay guests to do live classes in your community, and you pay them $1,000 per class, if I'm not mistaken. And that is pretty crazy to me because number one, you don't have to. I'm pretty sure that all the guests that you have, they would just love to come on and do these classes simply because of the exposure that your community is going to give them for their own creative business. So can you tell me what's your thinking behind this payment structure?
Yeah, so this started as an experiment. I did several experiments with this community, and this was one that I think worked well. And I've basically been doing it since I think I did this first class March of 2022. So we're approaching 2 years now of doing these regularly, about 5 or 6 classes a month. Why am I paying? Honestly, I don't know. Maybe you're right? And maybe the number, of course, it's a round number, $1,000 per session. To be honest, I think I asked myself, because this is different. This is different than a podcast. Here, you're asking me questions. I didn't really have to prepare anything. It's easy. But I'm asking people to prepare some content, prepare slides, right? Basically, I just hand off the microphone to them, and they have to have 60 to 90 minutes worth of content. So it's a decent amount of work. And I remember thinking about myself, what would make me do it if somebody were to ask me? And I felt for $1,000, I would probably do it, right? It's an hour. It's not really an hour because you have to prepare, and it probably takes a few hours actually, right, of work to do this one-off thing. And for me, I'm also recording the session. The recording is an asset that all the members get access to, so it becomes part of the product. So where did this number come from again? It's just basically was a gut feel. Could I have gotten away with $500 or $700? Maybe. And almost everyone I asked to join as a class, nobody said no yet. I think I had only one person who actually was reluctant to do it, to be completely honest. But out of 35 or so different guests that I had, almost everyone. So that tells me it's working. That even some of who had a few very successful creators like Justin Welsh, who's making millions of dollars from his products, I think he hosted like 4 or 5 classes for us. The fact that he came to me tells me that it's motivating enough for him. I'm sure he doesn't need the money. He's doing well enough for himself. But I think it's still nice to feel you're rewarded, right? It's a commercial activity at the end of the day, right? People are paying to join the community, right? They're basically getting, the hosts are getting something in return. So yeah, not much rational thinking about it, just felt I had to do it, right? Especially to attract the successful guests. And the number came from what I felt I would want to do it myself. And it's been running with it since then. To be completely clear as
Right.
well, we had a few sessions which were multi-session. They weren't just 90 minutes each. We just had one recently about tax preparation, which was 3 sessions, all related. And sometimes we have 2 session classes, and those there might be a different payment structure, $1,500, $2,000. It have been a bit more variable depending on the time commitment from the host.
Interesting. So, would you, if you had guests telling you that I would have done this for free, would you maybe
Yeah,
reconsider this pricing structure in the future?
potentially, yes. And to be honest, at one point I did consider a different category of classes that are more, because I'm sure there are people who would be willing to share something for free, like you saying, for exposure, to build a name for themselves, for their reputation, to promote their stuff. Because I encourage people, look, if you're doing something, feel free to plug your thing. Of course, I don't want these to be sales pitches, but it's totally fine to say I'm doing this, or I have a newsletter. You can follow on, and so on and so forth. But there's another thing that I try to balance, is that I want to try to keep a high bar for the people who are giving classes, because even though these are free for the members, people are busy, right? They're sacrificing time with their family, time from their work, right, to attend these classes, and I don't take that lightly, right? I mean, people are paying with their time essentially. So when I was considering whether to invite even more people, where I apply less filtering, like maybe pay them less or pay them nothing just for the exposure, the part of the dilemma was I'm basically offsetting some of the risks to the members, where the session might not be that useful or that inspiring, and now they wasted some of their time. So that never really happened, even though it's still in the back of my mind. I'm still trying to see ways of adding even more content and giving even more opportunities to people to join. But basically, I think what ended up being like, I still needed to apply a very high filter for who does these classes, and the people who I end up choosing tend to be busy, they tend to be successful, and I think it's both worth giving them the money, and also it's fair, right? Because they're spending time, and sort of they should probably be compensated for it, right? So maybe yes, maybe no. It's there. I'm always wondering, always with my radar open, right, trying to see if there's an opportunity to find win situations, both for the hosts, for the guests, and for me as a business, but haven't yet
Yeah,
found.
I think this is a really interesting point about how having this structure creates a natural filter where it allows you to ask whether you would pay $1,000 to have this
Yeah.
class. And if
Yeah.
you wouldn't, then probably it is not a good enough class for your members also.
Exactly. It's all part of it. Like the fact that it's quite takes quite a bit of time to organize the event. Just some discussions about what it's going to be like, lots of back and forth on DMs. Sometimes I have a call with the host to make sure that they have something useful to say. So it's yes, it is. And I attend every single one of them myself, like even when they're repeated. So it's a commitment from me as well. I'm there in the room, right? So yeah, if it starts to feel like it's not worth it for me to pay this much, to be in the room, to organize it, chances are it's not worth it for the guests as
Wow.
well,
Okay.
right?
So you
So
attend every single class.
I do, yes. I've only missed, we've done, I think, 150 or so. I think I've only missed a couple when I was sick or I was really an extraordinary event for multiple reasons. Again, first of all, because I help the host as well. We have lots of conversations in the chat, and I know sometimes when you're presenting, it's hard to keep track of what's happening. So I provide some value, hopefully, like just by facilitating the host. But I think it's also a strong signal for both the host and also the guests. Like the fact that I'm in there for the host, it helps them, right, to know that I care and I'm helping, but also for the guests. I'm there always with video on, leading the chat, participating, and I do my best to be there all the time, right? So it's part signaling, part value, and
Yeah.
part filtering, like you said. Because again, like sometimes I start to notice maybe we should do this less frequently, or maybe we should tweak it the next time we do it. It's hard to do it unless you have a little bit of skin in the game yourself, or you're delegating it to someone else, right? So,
Hmm. Love
yeah,
this. This is a really unique way of thinking. I haven't come across this yet. And I would like to dive more into your selection process for these classes. At this point, I'm sure that you receive a lot of inbound requests for classes as well. And sometimes they're probably from people who aren't really like famous
hmm
online, who don't
yeah.
have a big follower, and then but you still have them do the class. So um, what is your criteria? What is your filtering process?
Yeah. I certainly give a lot of weight to whether they're already in the community, right? And if I already noticed them before, and I would say the vast majority of the people, probably 75%, they were me reaching out because I've noticed them being active in the community. They were already helping other people. They had some interesting insights, or maybe they attending another class and they asked interesting questions, right? And I noticed them myself. Or I noticed them in the community and then I followed them on Twitter, and on Twitter I saw them doing something interesting. The vast majority happened
Mhm.
this way. And I think that helps me a lot because again, there's a lot already that has been de-risked in terms of knowing the person, knowing that they're useful, knowing that other people like to hear from them, seeing them seeing them articulate their thoughts and whatever. But sometimes I do sort of the opposite, right? Where I ask on Twitter anyone interested, or I get recommendations from people. And in that case, I try to do a little bit of background. And at the end of the day, sometimes we just take the risk, especially if it's a recommendation from someone I trust. There were a few, a minority, right, where I didn't know the person at all. The first time I meet them was on the class, but there's usually some signal. So the recommendation from someone, right? Or maybe I don't know them, but I followed their content or their newsletter or whatever, right? So at least there's already been some important signal. But yeah, there've been classes where we've done them and I felt this was okay, it was interesting, but maybe we wouldn't repeat it. So maybe because not necessarily because the host did something wrong, but sometimes maybe the content was a bit too niche, right? Maybe there isn't enough appeal. We did one recently with Sahil Lavinia from Gumroad, which to me was very fascinating. It was about equity crowdfunding for small-time entrepreneurs. It was very interesting. I learned a lot from it, but it turned out the attendance was quite low compared to others, right? And there wasn't that level of enthusiasm compared to others. So that sort of told me nothing wrong again with the content. It was certainly, I think it was worth it paying for it, even if it was just me and Sahil, right? Because me personally, I learned a lot, it was very useful. But you start getting these kinds of feedbacks loops, which it helps me play it by ear about what to do next. whether to repeat the session, whether to try to tweak it, or whether to do more of them from other different people on the same topic, and so on and so forth. I like to not rely a lot. I mean, we do send a survey at the end of at the end of the session, 5-star rating, and people can leave comments, but it's not really, and that weighs a little bit. But I try to read the room basically, which is honestly just to get a sense of the enthusiasm people are having. It's funny, sometimes we do a class and people literally while the class is happening go on Twitter and say and take a screenshot, I'm in this class with XY and I'm learning a lot. This is great, right? And you start to sense that this is something that people feel this was worth it. It was worth skipping dinner with their family so that they attend the class, right? And they got something out of it. Right. And there's a high bar, as I said, that people's time is valuable and it's important that people feel like, hell yeah, this was worth
Yeah.
joining.
And along the same lines, have you identified any best practices or any tips that you find make classes more active
Yeah.
that you share with the like guests now so that they can include it
Yes,
in
yes,
their
yes.
class?
It's
Yeah.
funny. It's funny. This is, I think, very unconventional advice because I think if you ask almost anyone about how to do engaging Zoom sessions and live classes, there's lots of advice about making them highly interactive, involving the members, breakout rooms, exercises, and so on and so forth. And we tried that, and we had some hosts do several kinds of those things. But what we noticed is that what's working best, at least in our context, is almost the opposite because people join these things the way they join the way they listen to a podcast, right? We started to notice that people are joining these things while they're doing some errand or they're walking or they're at work, they're doing some other things, they're busy with other things, and they're not ready to commit to a breakout room and talk and turn on video. But it's still interactive in a different way. We have a lot of interactivity in the chat. In the Zoom chats, they tend to light up, lots of questions. People ask because it's easy, right? I mean, you could be late at night again. Like we have different people in different time zones, right? It might be midnight, right? The whole family's asleep. They could be in bed with their headphones on or with their earpods on, and they're not going to be speaking or turning on the camera, right? But asking a question in the chat, it's great. And I'm reading everything in the chat. I bring up the questions, the hosts answers, back and forth like that, and it works. So with not necessarily, again, not I wouldn't necessarily say best practice or not, right? Because I'm certain the high interactivity classes tend to work for certain things, but at least for the kind of stuff we're doing, which is more informational and more inspirational, right? We're basically doing a podcast on steroids, right? The podcast is all one direction. It's already recorded, you listen to it, that's it, right? You can't really jump in with questions. But ours is a little bit like that. But if while you're hearing, you think of something, you put it in the chat immediately. I will see it and I will raise my hand, say, "Oh, here's a question from Nityesh. He's asking about what do you think about X, Y, and Z?" And the host will say, "Oh yeah, let me share my desktop to show you how I do it." Right, and it happens right there and then. Right, so this is the format that we've been doing. So basically, most of our hosts come with usually with 60 minutes worth of content prepared, sometimes slides, sometimes more casual, sometimes they literally just share their desktop and show us what they do things, right? And they're just talking casually about something that they do or that they know about. And then we involve the Q&A from the audience live. It's almost like a live stream on Twitch. Maybe that's the equivalent, more similar parallel, right? Where
Yeah.
there's an audience, there's the streamer, right? And we have some facilitation, we have some structure, right? But it's that kind of format that has been working best for us. It's funny that this is why I was telling you I like to read the room, right? When we've tried with more interactive type of sessions, you literally see the participants drop. Like, for example, you might have 70 people live. I see it in Zoom on the window. And as soon as the host says, we're going to do a breakout room now, so make sure you turn on their cameras, 50 people leaving the room. And look, and some people might say that's okay, right? I mean, this is going to be delivering a lot of value to the other 20 that's remained. And maybe so. But at the end of the day, I have to be cognizant, right, that these sessions need to be compelling to a decently large audience, right? If we're doing something that's only helping one or two people, maybe this is not the right format, because we're inviting hundreds or thousands of people to join. Right? Ideally, this is more general. Maybe there are other opportunities for more specific niche things, but that maybe requires a different kind of structure, I think, rather than these kinds of events.
Hmm.
So yeah, this was an interesting innovation again, mostly by trial and error. That's we're more now gravitating towards this is the ideal format.
Got it. And this brings up another question in my mind. So you said that you have repeat classes, you have guests to repeat classes.
Yeah.
How do you think through the ROI of a repeat class? Because you already have the content as a recording, it's already a part of the product. So how does it help the business?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? And I certainly a new class has better ROI because it's new. I can promote it, whatever. I think the what I here's the thing that I noticed, and this was an interesting lesson as well. Even though we have the recordings, very few people watch the recordings, and this I think is just human nature, human psychology. So what ends up happening, even if we do a repeat class, people see it, they click, add to my calendar. 30 minutes before the event starts, a reminder comes up on their phone, and they're significantly more likely to attend if they get that thing. The reminder, the calendar, it's happening now, right? It's a bit of FOMO, fear of missing out. Right. And the recordings is there. The people who are very motivated to want to learn something might watch it, but for those who are more on the fence, right, they tend to need that kick of the live class. So basically we do live events primarily for new members, basically, because we had 7 members join today. These members haven't joined any live classes yet, right? So for them, repeat classes are new classes. Yes, they could click the recordings button and see the recordings of the previous classes, but many of them don't do. Again, I don't really know what happens in our brain to not make us want to do that. Partly, I think, again, it's like human nature. It just feels more pleasant. Partly, it's motivational. It's far behind the motivation to just go watch things yourself, but if it's happening tomorrow, right? And partly the interactivity, right? Again, part of
Right.
the compelling aspect, you're going to be in the same room as some of these minor celebrities, right? That you could ask them questions and whatever. And there's that nice feeling and value of getting your questions answered and so on and so forth. But yes, I mean, at one point earlier, I think in 2022, I was doing much more frequent repeats, right? And now I've sort of now at one point I was doing like repeats, like the good classes. I was repeating them even every 2 months or 3 months, and now I'm sort of thinking probably the ideal frequency is not repeating anything more than twice a year, right? So 6 months apart is probably the right cadence, right?
Hmm.
And right now, sort of that's what I'm trying to do, and trying to bring even more new people, just because new people, again, just more content, more ideas, easier to sell the product, and so on.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, this is a nice segue, selling the product into the next segment that I've got,
Mhm.
which is about the structure of your membership. So you have a one-time fee that ranges between $200 to $300 for lifetime
Mhm.
access. This is based on
Mhm.
purchasing power parity. And
Yeah.
this is literally the only community, at least the only high value community that I know of that
Mhm.
has a one-time fee of like this. Can you
Yeah.
tell us why do you like this one-time fee format
Yeah.
instead of a recurring fee format?
So multiple reasons, but fundamentally, I think is the one that makes most money, to be honest, and I will explain why. Right? So
Mhm.
this might sound surprising, but it's a business. But I'm pretty convinced that if I either had monthly fees, say $25 a month or $50 a month, or even yearly fees, if it was 99 a year or 180 a year or whatever, I think, and this is hard to prove because you can't really A/B test this in parallel universes, but I'm pretty convinced that the total revenue and profits would be less. Why do I think that? First of all, I think, let's start with monthly, right? Monthly, I think, would very likely cause two problems. First of all, it would lower there's another filter for the quality of members. We have an active Discord and Campfire and chat and even the live classes. There's members all the time. And we had 5,200 members. We had never had an incident of anyone being annoying or spammy or abusive or harmful or hurtful or any of that nonsense that you tend to deal with free communities or very low ticket very low ticket prices. Right? So, and I think part of this is that it could happen. I'm sure at some point it might happen, but the frequency will be low. I think part of it is that you have to pay a decent price to get in. Right? So it eliminates a lot of all that nonsense. And I fear that if we had a lower ticket monthly thing, it invites much more of the people who are going to join for 1 month. They're just going to spam with their links or just try to extract everything and leave, right? And sort of attract the wrong kind of customer. In addition, I think it would likely lead also to high amounts of churn. And I've been in many parts of communities. I don't know if you know that, but I'm also part of the Gumroad team. I was helping Sahil a couple of years ago with product management. I got to talk with lots of community owners as well, myself, who were doing monthly communities on different fields. And I've seen from behind the scenes and from talking to people that the churn rates tend to be extreme. 33% a month, like the average member stays 2-3 months or so. And this is actually not surprising for these kinds of things because with communities, right, you join, you get something, you get what you were looking for, some instant gratification, and life tends to get in the way, right? You're busy with your day job, you're busy with life, things come up, right? And then you start seeing the transaction in your statement month after month, and you start thinking, oh, look, I barely logged in this month. Should I be paying for this? And you say, no, I'm going to cancel. What's the point? And once you have a churned member, usually that's it. You lost that connection. That person very likely is not going to come again. Very likely is going to be talking about you positively, about your community. Very likely is going to be referring other people to come, right? Even if they become less busy in the future, usually in their mind, it's a closed transaction. I was a member once, but I left. Whereas with lifetime membership, it changes the dynamic completely, right? You can check out. I can't control that, right? You could not log in for a year or more, but you can never truly leave. You're always a member. You're always a connection with me. And this is actually has been very helpful because it re-engages people. Every month, roughly, I send an email to people reminding them of the upcoming classes. And it's incredible how much people get re-engaged from that email because I've been running this community now since October 2021, so in 2.5 years. And there are people who I remember were very active in 2021. I know them by name. They were active. We talked, whatever. But then they disappeared. I didn't hear anything about them. They're not even active on Twitter anymore. You wonder what happened to them. You almost forget about them. And then years later, a year later, 2 years later, they pop up and this is a common pattern. And they say, oh, I saw your email yesterday. There was this class on LinkedIn. It caught my attention. They joined the Zoom and they come back and they become active again, right? And they explain sometimes why they got busy. They got promoted at work and suddenly their side projects got relegated to the back burner and they had a baby and whatever, right? And they didn't have time to think about all those things. And this is important, right? Because these people, right, when you're almost over delivering to these people, they paid a long time ago. We're not asking them for money. They attended the class for free. These are the kinds of people who go on Twitter and say, I really got a lot of value from this. They bring more people and so on and so forth. That's so even if I was running a subscription business, there's always going to be a lifetime value per member, right? And as you said, my prices have varied between 185 to 375 mostly. And I experimented with purchase parity pricing as well. So there were a few other variations, but this was ballpark. And my average revenue per member is around 200 something dollars. That's my lifetime basic value per member. I'm almost certain that any other pricing structure that I would have tried would have resulted into a lower average revenue per member than that. It's basically that, right? I think if I were charging $25 a
Right.
month, I would have struggled to get to even probably $100 per member. Yearly, to be completely honest with you, I considered it significantly, right? Because yearly seems like a little bit of best of both worlds. But I think even then, right, there's the risk of if you're going to send a reminder before the renewals happen, which I think is the right thing to do. I think many people will start thinking, I'm not going to be busy next year. I'm going to be charged another $100 or whatever. That will probably get a lot of cancellations. Or else it automatically renews, right? And then they feel almost screwed because I wasn't really using this thing and I now just got automatically charged, and that's a negative sentiment. It's been my
Right.
goal, part of my marketing, right? To have zero negative sentiments. Right? The only pain point is that time when you check out and you give me your hard-earned money one time, long time ago. The future is all goodness. The gift that keeps on giving is the nicest compliment that I like to receive. Because the future can only bring you new stuff, new classes, new connections, new conversations, never asking you for extra money, basically, right? So
Right.
this sounds all good, right? But I think the way the business works, fundamentally back to maximizing lifetime value. And I'm pretty convinced, I can't prove it concretely, but I'm pretty convinced my $220 lifetime value that I'm getting right now is maximized with the current price point and with current price structure as a lifetime thing. Again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe yearly might have eked out a little bit more, could be, but I think the drawbacks of that backfiring are higher than maybe optimizing it, the potential of optimizing it by a little bit more. So basically, so that's my answer, and I highly encourage people who are thinking of doing communities or things like that to consider this because I think it's highly underrated. I think about a month ago there was this big conference by Circle. I don't know if you heard Circle,
Yeah.
the platform. They do this. I don't know if they do it yearly or whatever, but I listened to it. It was a Zoom conference thing, and they had they had many people talk about pricing. Like they invited many successful community owners, hours and hours talking about communities and pricing. Not one person mentioned the option of doing lifetime memberships. Like they talked about everything but for hours. Like this was like an 8 hour thing, multi-day thing, right? And I found this really fascinating, right? That nobody even considered. What if you charge people once and they're lifetime members? And I
Right.
think it's very underrated, and it can work, right? It
Yeah.
certainly can, and not only it can work, but I think it can also be the better option for the business and the better option for the members as well.
This literally blows my mind because I came into this conversation thinking that you were doing lifetime value as some sort of like goodness of your heart, and you're kind of like
Yeah.
leaving value on the table and leaving room for growth. But it really blows my mind thinking how rational it is to over deliver value and have that be like the best possible business that you can have. And I'm gonna give you,
And
yeah,
over delivering, like you're saying, like over delivering has become part of my marketing. So when this started, like when I started this, most of the people who were joining were people who followed me on Twitter, it was part of my audience. But very quickly, after a few months, that distribution channel started to become exhausted. It's not completely exhausted, but there's a limit, right, of how much reach I have. Right. So now, well, I mean, at one point I had to start focusing more on word of mouth, like people bringing other people. Like literally just a member that maybe I found talking to their 5 friends and bringing 5 other people with them. And part of this gift that keeps on giving, the word of mouth, the fact that people never leave, the fact that people never leaves gives me, I have 5,200 members. Yes, people can click the unsubscribe button and I never email them again, but almost nobody does it. So this is an opportunity for me to keep reminding them to remain top of mind that there's something happening and so on and so forth. If they canceled, then they said they're not my customer anymore, right? I shouldn't be emailing them ever again, right? So it's unlikely they're going to remember the community. They bump into a friend who's thinking about doing some side projects to tell them, look, you should join Small Bets, whatever. So yeah, it was part marketing, right? And over delivering is part of the marketing strategy, essentially, right? I paid for this thing, I got what I wanted, but now I'm going to keep receiving indefinitely, right, for in the future. So
Mhm.
great, so you
So
mentioned, right, because it's important.
This is interesting. So right now you're saying that almost all the new customers that you're getting are through referrals
Yeah,
from other members.
it's very hard to measure, right? But I think it's there's a significant part of it. There's still certainly part that comes to me because my audience keeps growing, and again, the audience is a dynamic thing, right? Not everyone joins immediately. People might have heard about the community for a long time, and now is the time for them to join. So there's always this decaying thing. But certainly, I'm seeing a lot of people joining, for example, who don't even follow me. People join, they go on the in the chat room and they say something about themselves. Sometimes they have links to social media, and I notice, look, these people don't even follow me, right? And that's a positive thing for me,
Mhm.
right? I'm seeing the word of mouth working, and but it's too hard to measure, right?
Yeah.
Both technically, right? Because yes, I might see they came from Twitter, but is it my Twitter or somebody else's Twitter? They came direct. Is it an email that I sent or somebody shared the link, right? So I'm
Mhm.
rely a lot again, like on reading the room a little bit. Who are these
Yeah.
people? Where did they come from, right? And
Right.
you start seeing it, right? You start seeing the signals. I came here because Nityash told me about it, or I heard about it in my workplace Slack, or I read about it on this blog post from this guy or that person or whatever, and you start to realize, oh, people are now coming from these different places, and I tend to notice that, so I tend to try to facilitate and make that happen as much as possible.
Right.
That's basically for
Yeah,
people
this
to
is
write a blog post about you. You need to give them something to write about, right? And sort of all these things. The more classes we do, the more connections people form in the group chats, like the more inspiration that happens, the more opportunity that there is. They go on Twitter, they go on their Medium blogs and whatever, and they write something about you, right? So it's all part of fueling that energy.
yeah. Yeah. Maybe there's an idea. Maybe you can start surveying new members. Like how did you first hear about small bets?
Yeah,
And that can give you some idea.
to
Yeah.
yes. And I'm sure that would be helpful. And maybe the reason why I haven't done it yet, because and this is something I try to be very cautious with. Me and I model many of my decisions based on what I like and I dislike. And generally, I don't know who likes to receive a lot of surveys. Every time I'm doing something, I took my car to take a service. I received two or three different surveys from the garage, from the manufacturer, from the person who received me at the receptionist. Like everyone wants me to rate the experience. That's a bit annoying, right? And so I tend to avoid asking people as a principle, right? In general, like overall, I prefer to read their behavior. What are they doing? Are they joining the classes? Are they leaving? Like I keep the participants list. Are they leaving in the middle? Are they asking questions? Are they joining again other classes? And I try to prefer seeing what they do rather than asking them for multiple reasons. First of all, I don't want to be annoying, even though I think you can do surveys without being annoying, right? So if you do it right. But also, I think, again, it's you can get more reliable information by observing people's behavior. Because when you ask people want to be nice and if you force them to write something, again, like people generally they might not write what they truly feel, right? But if you notice that they're dropping off, right, or they're not joining the sessions, or they're not returning, or whatever, that's a very strong signal, right? That I think
Mm.
is much, much more valuable. But it doesn't help. This question started from where are people coming from? Doesn't help
Yeah.
me very much to know where they're coming from. But still, you can gain observational signals again, like people introducing themselves. Many times, people voluntarily say where they came from.
This is such a genius idea. I just want to stress upon this because I'll give you like my own example of joining the small bets community. So I joined
Hmm.
it back in April of 2022. I think
Hmm.
that was like the first month when you started to just market the community instead of the cohort based course.
Yes, yes,
And it
yep.
might have been like the first
Hmm.
time you were offering like lifetime membership options. And I
Hmm.
joined it on a whim because I was like, oh my God, I'm getting a lifetime deal on a community membership that Daniel was saying. I have to just swipe my credit card. I still remember I was at the airport at 5 a.m. in the morning,
Oh,
and
wow.
like partly it was
Hmm.
partly I was just high on having like less sleep, and I just made the purchase. But then for the next 2 years, I was like almost 2 years, I was really bummed that I could not use that membership. And I was like, oh,
Mhm.
damn, that was not a good investment on my part because
Mhm.
life just happened and I couldn't focus on doing my small bets. But right
Mhm.
now, like for the past 2 months, I've been in the community like multiple times every week. I've been
Yeah.
posting stuff, I've been getting help from people, and it has just become so valuable for me right now after 2 years. And yeah,
Yeah.
I am somebody who
Yeah.
really appreciates having this lifetime membership option.
Well, no, absolutely. And this is something that is very common, right? So glad to hear another anecdote, right? But this is very common. And actually, I think there's still room for optimizing even. Again, to be honest, I'd probably still not doing the best job possible to bring people who have been inactive, right? And it's sort of part of the challenge to re-engage basically people when they're ready to engage, right? And the classes have been part that has been helpful, but I want to start to try to find ways to get people even more so to the group chats, to the Discord server, the campfire, and things like that, right? So that they have something else as well, right? To because those are the places where other things can happen. That's where you start forming friendships and connections. Some people found business partners or things that could potentially change your life, literally, right there.
Right.
And there is activity, right? But there's also people who have, for different reasons, right, became inactive, and it would be good to bring them back. So that's again part of the continuous challenge that of what to do
Yeah.
next.
Yeah, I think, yeah, just summarize. I would like to leave whoever's listening with two things that I've learned from this segment, which is that focus on average revenue per user as the metric. Like you said,
Mhm.
you have $220 as the average revenue, and that is more than what anybody with a monthly subscription option will probably get ever.
Mhm.
So number one is that, and then the second part is that even more important is you will have 100% goodwill amongst your customers. So it
Exactly.
is so common for me to unsubscribe from a community membership, and then I'm like, it leaves a bitter taste in my mouth forever
Exactly. Yes.
because
Yeah.
every time that I unsubscribe, it's always due to me feeling like, oh damn, I just lost my money for the past X months
Yeah.
on this
Yeah.
membership, and now I'm gonna
Yeah.
tell nobody about this. I'm yeah,
That's
probably
it.
like
That's
worst
it.
case, I'll just try to dissuade people from joining the
Exactly.
community.
Right. So it's hard to convince someone to join something you're not part of, right? I mean, but yeah, that's it, right? I mean, that's the insight. That's basically, yes, you have this 100% almost satisfaction people, members, right, who are all active members. And yeah, and I think it's an underrated way to bring all the lifetime value up front, which is basically when you think about it, the Kelling membership, it's basically you're getting paid in installments for the full lifetime value. Yes, you
Mm,
could upsell and you could optimize over time and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, if the subscription business has an average lifetime value and you're just getting paid on it monthly or yearly or what other means. Now, again, I'm not against any subscription business. It makes sense for certain things, and I'm sure it makes sense for certain communities as well. Especially, there are other communities that are very high touch, where there's like live meetups and there's daily calls or whatever, where maybe it makes more sense to have monthly subscriptions because you literally it's your monthly subscription to the gym, right? There's a physical place and there's machines and there's trainers and whatever. I can't imagine an uptime, a one-time lifetime gym membership. I would like it could be possible, but I would probably have to pay a lot of money, thousands of dollars, and maybe I would be reluctant to pay, say, $5,000 for a lifetime membership to the gym, right? I mean, what if I move? What if the
yeah,
gym closes? Right? What if my favorite trainer leaves or whatever, right? So there's too much uncertainty. But for
yeah,
something like this, in these price points, I think it helps the sale actually, because there's another thing, like you saying, like on a whim, very few people join your subscriptions on a whim, right? Or as an impulse buy. One time you're making this decision right there. You say, yes, it's $185. I can afford it. Done. Now I have access to forever. If you're signing up for $25 a month or 199 a year or 99 a year, you're thinking like, is it going to be easy to cancel? Will I get a reminder? Do I want to keep paying this forever? Do I need to set a reminder to consider canceling? That is a lot of burden on the customer at the delicate period when they're trying to give you money, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, it's an underrated option for sure.
I agree. Yeah, this is incredible. Okay. Okay, I want to move to another segment, which is tell me about small bot. This is the
Yeah.
craziest thing that I've seen, like the craziest application of GPT API that I've seen.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm curious, like, how did you create it?
So it's a toy. First of all, I didn't create it myself. It's my partner, Louis Bacage, who, again, as an experiment, I don't even remember why it started. It was purely, I think, just for fun, something for fun. Actually, I think we wanted to do something like a chatbot experience we used to get very common questions like, where's the recording for this class? Like whenever you do a live event, it's an inside joke for us. Like you get 5 questions. Where's the recording? Is this recorded? Whatever. I think the bot initially started as a way of there were 2 problems. One is like to try to answer some of these common questions when it's this event, like a typical chatbot. The other one was primarily at the time, and we still Discord was our main group chat. And Discord has one annoying problem, in my opinion, right? Sort of it's built for gamers where almost everyone is anonymous. Discord, you could put your real name, but it makes it almost hard to do it. I'm looking at my Discord right now. Almost everyone is cryptic usernames. So you don't know who these are. So one of our motivations was to try to create some bot commands such that you could do who is this person and it would tell you the name and their social media URLs. To be honest, none of these 2 things became popular. This who is command still exists. Almost nobody uses it. It's because it's hard to find. And the assistance feature that we thought the bot is going to jump in became almost annoying because it became hard. Sometimes people say, I watched the recording yesterday, and the bot thinks you're asking about the recording. So it jumps, answers something irrelevant. Right? So at some point, we turned off these assistance features. So a bit of part of our small bets philosophy comes from the writings of Nassim Taleb. You might know Nassim Taleb, the author of Black Swan, Anti-Fragile. And many of us really like Taleb, the way he thinks he writes. But on Twitter, Taleb, he's very interesting. He's much more crude. He has very low tolerance for people who are nitpicking and annoying. And he has a very colorful way of reacting to people who are annoying. And for fun, we had created a Taleb mode version of this assistant. If you back then, if you put in Taleb mode in brackets, the bot would respond to you inspired by how Taleb replies to annoying people on Twitter. This prompt was something like that. Respond to this person like Nassim Taleb responds to nitpickers on Twitter or something like that. And we were just having fun saying respond to Nityashin Taleb mode or welcome Nityashin Taleb mode. And it would come with an insulting or fun way of doing something sarcastic and so on and so forth. And eventually we removed this flag, right? So now it became by default, right? This sort of charismatic, sarcastic, insulting in a playful way. But so look, it's still a toy. I don't know if people have fun with it, but I think it's a toy. But these are small things. I think that they can make a community a bit more beloved, which is an intangible thing. It's hard to measure. It's a bit of a mascot type thing. We have some ideas on how to make it actually a bit more valuable. For example, now we have all these automated reminders about events about to happen, or reminders about the email announcements about the recordings and things like that. And we're trying to add some of the commentary from the bot about these things again, just to make it a bit more playful and summarize an event by the bot. And it's funny again, sometimes literally these things make me laugh out loud. Honestly, it's hard to believe this is AI. My wife thinks I'm crazy. Right? Very few people make me laugh out loud on the internet anymore, but this thing does. Right?
Same
And
here, same here.
yeah. So we're recognizing that there's a playful sort of charismatic thing. Believe it or it's weird to say this about an AI thing, but it is. And we're trying to weave it into, again, like to just make the place a bit more fun, a bit more beloved, right? That intangible thing that makes communities something you look forward to. And it's funny, right? Again, these are one of the small things that sometimes make people come back to the chat, right? Let me ask Smallbot about this, right? And they think of something, right? And they come and do it, and it's just a playful thing.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I love that. I love Smallbot, and it is the most amazing mascot that I've ever seen.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, that's great.
It's basically just a GPT essentially trained on Nassim Taleb's tweets writing.
Yeah, it's very fun. It's interesting because actually, well, I think one of the challenges that Louis discovered is that OpenAI and ChatGPT and many AI sort of products and APIs have lots of filters to not be insulting, right? They have these intentional mechanisms to not say anything harmful or hurtful. So it has like this inhibition. So it's required quite a lot of tinkering in trial and error with prompts to make it actually cares at you and be more authentic, basically, right? Which, I mean, authentic, it's maybe it's not a fit word, but feel like it's almost like a real person, and it feels like it has a personality because it removed this inhibitions. If you go to chat.openai.com and you ask a question there, it feels bland, right? I mean, it just feels like
Yeah.
customer service. Small, but like with these, it's using the same technology. It's GPT 4.5 Turbo using the API, but it has these, again, discovered to trial and error, these specific prompts to make it remove these inhibitions, which make it much more fun to interact with. Which always was funny. Once when we even made Taleb laugh at it. Taleb once was asking on Twitter, I don't know if you had seen this, he was asking about where to find a particular restaurant in Atlanta. And I went to Smallbot and asked Smallbot in our Discord, Maestro Taleb is asking where to find this places to eat Zumbaba in Atlanta. And Smallbot listed a very fun response. And I pasted it to Taleb in Twitter, and Taleb was laughing out loud as well. Like we couldn't believe this type of answer, which was quite fun to feed it back to him.
This is
Yeah.
this is amazing.
Yeah.
I love the story. And yeah, kudos on creating small bot and yeah, just iterating your way to create that. Because I think that is like one of the highlights of the community, right? It adds
That's
color
great.
to this community.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to ask you about like engagement. So before
Mhm.
you started Small Bets, you had another recurring community membership business called Profit and
Mhm.
Loss. And I
Yeah.
was watching the class that you did on in Small
Mhm.
Bets, the recording of that class, and you mentioned that over the months, the activity in that community sort
Yeah.
of disintegrated and it became
Mhm.
quiet. But then with Small Bets, you saw the inverse happening, like members were
Yeah.
organically talking and sharing stuff. What is your hypothesis? Why did this happen?
I wish I knew the answer, to be honest. And I think this is why communities are very hard to build, because it seems you have this chicken and egg problem, and you need to have activity happening for other people to become active and to remain active. And honestly, I think two things happened. In this case, this project started not as a community. You mentioned it before, that I was just doing a cohort course, 6 sessions on Zoom. My landing page back there didn't mention anything about the community. If you go way back archive and you find the landing page, it was just, we're going to do 6 sessions on Zoom on 2 weeks, where I'm going to share with you some of the ideas and strategies I used to create my own small projects and how you think about them. Lots of ideas again from Taleb and anti-fragile and dealing with uncertainty, randomness, all that stuff. But it was basically that. And what happened was I set up a Discord server primarily to help people find the notes and the slides and things like that. Right? It was basically just an alternative to using email or something like that. And I was barely opening it. I remember I created the Discord server. I told people, look, I'm going to be sharing the slides and the notes and the chat transcripts there, posting them there, and I didn't even install the app on my phone. And what happened by accident is that the people who were members joined the Discord, and then they were coming back with observations they're seeing in the world, and they were sharing the projects that they were doing and asking for feedback, sharing their small wins, and they kept coming back. Basically, they kept coming back. Excuse me. After the 6 sessions ended, and then I did another cohort, another new batch of 25 people. I invited them to the same Discord server, and these people found already some activity happening. And I think I was super lucky that the first 25 people were highly active on their own, right? It's just they happened to be the right people who just created the energy that was necessary to to make this work in the beginning. Where if it could have been the different kind of people who would have been less active, and this could have turned much, much different. So my takeaway had been that it's very hard to intentionally create a community. I tried to do that back in 2020 with Profit and Loss. I think it's easier to do something else, get people together, and then sort of if something happens, if not, you just keep bringing people together, right? And sort of wait for the thing to take a life on its own. Because it's hard to engineer engagement, right? I think it's hard to make people do things, right? You could try, right? But it almost has to be intrinsic, right? People need to, it just needs to happen. So yeah, I mean, that's what that taught me something, right? Because that was I had about 1,500 members within the first 2 weeks, right? It grew very quickly, but then just people stopped coming back. Right? It was almost impossible to motivate people to come back and become engaging. Whereas this, because initially because of my course, more recently because of the classes, right? There's always something recurring happening, and there's already activity. The fire seems to never extinguish. Right? It's hard to reproduce. If you were to tell me, look, can you create another community tomorrow and do the same thing? Probably I will fail. But if there is any formula, I think it's just to do something else that brings people together. Look, I've seen people succeed with communities, for example, by organizing a meetup in real life. 10 people, they meet about something, they create a WhatsApp group, and they keep talking after they go back to home. And that's WhatsApp group, they start inviting other people to it, right? And that becomes the community, right? And I think it's important to think in those terms, like how can we bring people together? It could be with a cohort course, maybe it could be with a meetup, maybe it could be because there's a conference, it could be because you have a podcast and you have a Discord for all your guests. Who knows? Things like this, for example, right? And then you start observing and playing it by ear. And then maybe you could carve a boundary and say this is going to be a paid community now, right? And then new members need to pay to join or something along those lines.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. This is really cool because this essentially means small bets itself is a recipient of the random luck that you talk about in the small bets
Yeah, it was
philosophy.
one of those. Yeah, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
like it's funny. I wasn't trying to create a community and the community happened.
Yeah.
It's very hard to understand where destiny will take you. Absolutely. It's a manifestation of, it's a bit meta, right? I was giving this course
Yeah.
about embracing randomness, and you never really know where life will take you, and business is more random than it seems. And the most valuable thing that happened from that course was something which I observed also by accident. I kept repeating the cohort like that for 12 times. We mentioned you joined in April 2022 until March 2022. That was, I think I did the 12th or 13th. I think 12th cohort. And then people started telling me, I joined this cohort, but this Discord server that you have here, this is the most valuable thing. Right? You should be selling this. And that started to make me think that maybe this is this. It was a slight repositioning. I didn't really change much, right? We still had the Discord and the course, but suddenly I started selling the Discord server instead. Hey, you can join instantly, and then I still do the course once a month. You can join whenever you want. Whereas before I was selling the course, and the Discord was a bonus. And suddenly I find myself selling the Discord, and then the course became the bonus, right? And now sort of even that evolves, right? Because now it's not even that. Right now you're joining the community again, but it's not even the Discord as the main focus. There's the list of events, and everything is also a size dish
Yeah.
of the whole thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
This is super cool. Okay, Daniel, one final question for this interview. What are your plans for the future? And in particular, I would like to know if you have plans for creating um, tighter collaborations between the community members, because that is
Mhm.
one thing that is the hidden like potential I see in the community. Yeah,
Yeah.
it can help more community members meet each other either physically or with virtual co-founder dating or even mastermind sessions that a lot of other communities do. Have you been thinking about
Yeah,
this?
I was thinking about it a lot, in fact. There are a couple of features on not just on the roadmap, but work in progress to try to facilitate some of this um, matching. And we already have a directory of members, but it's not very useful to find people with relevant interests and whatever. So plans on how to expand that to filter by interest or people looking for each other and set up one-on-ones quickly with other people, organize in-person meetups and so on and so forth. So that's one thing. More of that will be happening this year for sure in terms of tooling and encouraging people to do these kinds of things. Another thing we're experimenting with, and we've already tried this, and I mentioned that people join one time, lifetime, so on and so forth, right? But we twisted this rule a little bit just very recently, and you might have received our email a few months ago. Right? We're trying these somewhat coaching programs, you could call them. It's very hard to define, right? So we started with info product coaching. Right? This is something we've done ourselves, both Louis and I, and we know a lot of people in this space. And there's many people interested in the community who want to create education info products, basically to monetize some knowledge in their head into a book or a course or a live class or something like that. And we were realizing that many people are stuck and they need something to motivate them to do something. They have all the ingredients in their heads. They know they have the skills to write and produce the content, but sometimes they're stuck because either they need some accountability or they need some structure on how to do it, or they need some inspiration on how to realize that they already have what it takes. Now they don't need to keep waiting for something big to happen. And this actually started where Louis, my partner here in this project, was doing something similar with newsletters. And he did this last year. He did with another member, with Chris Wong. We called it the Newsletter Launchpad. It was free to all members, and members joined who were interested in starting a newsletter. And this was super successful in terms of outcomes. Right? Hundreds of people joined. Louis and Chris gave high touch, one-on-one feedback to every individual person who joined, like literally reading the entire drafts for their newsletters, guiding them into finding their first subscribers, right? And the results were very positive. Like hundreds of people said it, and months later they kept saying they're grateful for that program because it was the necessary accountability, it was the right amount of feedback, right? It was the right structure to get them unstuck and to succeed with newsletters. So it was a great program. The problem was it's very costly to run because Louis and Chris were spending literally an entire month, hours and hours a day giving feedback, helping, right? And we realized, and we were not making, it wasn't something that was easy to sell as well. I doubt we got new members because of that. So we realized, look, this is infeasible to keep doing it for free. What can we do? At one point, we thought of creating a completely separate product that's coaching, launchpad kind of thing. But then we thought maybe this could be an add-on for members of the small bet community, for the small bets community, right? People who want our one-on-one coaching, right, and sort of join a smaller group of people who want to go into info products and get high touch feedback, one-on-one calls. We have a small private group in our campfire, right, where we were just talking for products and we share ideas and give feedback to each other and so on and so forth. There's a one-time fee. You join once. There's a program, there's a structure, a 4-week program where we help people come from brainstorm their ideas, research the market, define an expectation, come up with a marketing plan, prepare the products, prepare the content, bring it to market, pricing, and all the other stuff, right, that's important to make their first sales. But this is very high touch, right? So we did this once in last month, right, in February. We enrolled 25 people, and it was quite successful. I think we're going to start another one next week with another batch of 25 people. And now we're sort of, this is creating another tighter knit community, right? Because now we have another group of people. Like I know these people now first name basis. So I talked with them on Zooms, one-on-one multiple times. I know their backgrounds. They know me. We know them, right? And we follow each other closely. And they knowing each other as well, right? So the connections are forming not just between me and Louis and them, but even between the members themselves. So we're going to repeat this another couple of times. Writing for products, I think, was the right thing to start with because we have lots of first-hand experience with. We'll likely do another one related to audience building, online writing, and things like that, because that's also something both Louis and I have lots of experience and credibility with. But we're thinking of trying to expand these eventually by inviting other people to help us on other things, like on building software projects, on other types of products, e-commerce and things like that people are interested in. They probably wouldn't be able to host ourselves. We might be there to facilitate, but other people would join and create these, not necessarily create that, but sort of help us facilitate these more tight-knit groups focused on a specific thing, right? On info products, on this building, or on e-commerce, or on software as a services, or so on and so forth. Still an experiment, still I don't really know how it will pan out. But the reason I mentioned it, because when you mentioned to create more tight-knit connections, this is one instance where I'm seeing it, right? With these 25 people, they were 25 people in our Discord out of the 5,000, right? Very superficial connection, right? But now it's super tight knit, right? We just yesterday I had a couple of calls with two people, right? I wouldn't say we're friends, right? But we're almost, right? You just very well, we know each other very well now. So we're charging, and to be completely transparent, we're charging $1,500 for this program. So it's not cheap, right? We think we're making it worth it. Super high touch, right? People are bringing an actual product to market and they're making money from it. So hopefully they recoup that investment financially, not to mention with the connections and with the knowledge and so on and so forth. But this was basically the only way for us to continue to do this, right? It wouldn't have been feasible to do it for free, especially since we're bringing other people to help even with this with info products. It's not just me and Louis, but we brought in Hassan, Osman, and Greg Lim, right, as mentors. We're paying them, right? And there's financial costs involved, not to mention a big commitment from our time every time we run these things. So we're very bullish on this structure, right? We're going to try to make it better, right? We're keeping it a bit stealth intentionally just so that we continue, not necessarily stealth, but we only announced it to a small fraction of the community, the first one. Now, in the second batch, we announced it to a bigger batch, but there's still 2/3 of the community doesn't know anything about it yet. Just so that we gives us a bit more freedom to continue to streamline it and experiment it with it, right? But we're bullish on this structure, right? Because we've seen it work already with the newsletter thing last year. This first batch, where even as a paid thing, it seems like this high level of customer satisfaction. The vast majority of people brought an actual concrete product on the market. The ones who didn't yet, they've made lots of work in progress, right? And they will likely do it as well. And again, going back to your thing, it's creating that tightness groups that really, that I think are valuable.
I think,
so yeah.
I think that's a fantastic idea. I can imagine myself. So I'm trying to build a SaaS business. So I can imagine myself participating in the one that you're about building software businesses. And I can imagine there being like 10 other different small groups happening throughout the community for different of the niches that people have making their small bets. I think
because
this is
imagine
really,
there
really
would
smart.
be, like in the SaaS group, there would be some of the internet celebrities that we know. Of course, I haven't talked to anyone yet, so I can't promise anyone. But some of the people might follow on Twitter or whatever. I'd be there helping with their insights, right, and giving feedback. We will be paying them, of course, right? So that will be part of the arrangement, that they would be there, right, coaching basically people to not make the mistakes or to be inspired and scoping things down and do the right things, which again, it boils down fundamentally to getting people unstuck, right? These projects tend to be daunting. It's daunting to start from scratch, not knowing what to do, where to draw the line, how much to charge, what is good enough, right? And I think this is where these kinds of things can be helpful, right? Because they make things more tame, right? And yeah, so yeah, that's probably, but maybe that is one of the most concrete things that's plans for the future, because we're already trying it, and I think now we just need to find a way to make it more systematic part of the product, where people can discover it, join the next one, right? And there's like a proper process. Right now it's all very scrappy, just sending emails and Stripe links and checking everyone on a Google sheet, right? That kind of thing. That's very likely become part of the whole experience, where it would be an add-on, so to speak,
Yeah.
right, to the community, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is really smart. Yeah. I love everything that you're doing, Daniel, and I'm a big fan, proud member of Small Bets. And
Thank you.
yeah, thank you so much for being on this podcast and discussing your way of thinking about building this community, amazing community business. It has been such a pleasure talking to you, and I'm sure that the listeners will be able to learn a ton about building their own community businesses from you.
Wonderful. No, thank you for having me. Great. Always great to talk about these things. I really enjoy sharing what I know. Yeah. So, yeah, it was great.
Amazing.